Hello. Did you know that every hour Americans throw away about 2.5 million plastic bottles into the garbage? My name is Dan DeVries, and I'm going to talk a little bit about recycling today. Some of the main topics we'll talk about today are the detriments to our life and our wildlife. We'll talk about some energy savings. We'll talk about examples of recycling. Also talk about some legislation that can improve our recycling. And finally, we'll talk about the biggest deterrent to recycling, which is our costs. So first, we'll talk about how not recycling affects our way of life. Did you know that when you throw away a plastic bottle or another recyclable material, it doesn't just go into the trash bin and disappear magically? It eventually goes into our landfills and also goes into our oceans, where it can really affect our way of life. It can also affect wildlife. The wildlife can get caught up in some of this plastic and other material and become injured or killed. However, thankfully, recycling rates have increased. From about 1980 to today, the recycling rates have increased by about 22%. This is a great increase, however, it needs to continue. Next, we'll talk about some of the energy savings we get from recycling. According to the EPA, we get a lot of energy savings using recyclable material versus using raw material. For example, with aluminum cans or any aluminum material, we get about a 95% savings of using recycled material versus using the raw material. With plastics, 70%, steel, 60%, paper, 40%, and even with glass, it's still 30% savings. Next, we'll talk about some of the examples of recycling. With glass, it can be recycled over and over again. What we have here is some glass cullet, which is used crushed glass, which can be sent to a glass facility and melted and create a new glass bottle or another glass material. And they can be used again and again and again without losing its properties. Next, we can talk about plastics. Plastics can be recycled a certain number of times before it gets broken down too far. Certain plastics can be recycled into a lesser grade plastic. We can even recycle plastic into making another product, such as a fleece jacket. One company that sells some of their fleece jackets is Patagonia. The increase of recycling one aluminum can is the equivalent savings of energizing your TV for 3 hours. Also, recycling rubber is an important thing. Rubber, such as these tires, can be recycled and made into things such as the track around a high school football field. Another form of recycling is called composting. This is when you take certain vegetables and fruits from your kitchen or the leaves that fall from your tree, and it can be put together into a large area outside. It eventually breaks down and can be used again as fertile soil to grow some more fruits and vegetables. Next, we'll talk about legislation that can help increase recycling rates. There's a legislation called Extended Producer Responsibility, which has been used effectively in Asia and Europe. This basically shifts the responsibility of recycling a product to the producer. This will incentivize them to create a product that is more recyclable, or also allow them to make sure it goes from cradle to grave and it doesn't just end up in the trash or into our landfills. Certain examples of this that fall under the Extended Producer Responsibility Act are carpets, paints, pesticides, and mattresses. Next, we'll talk about the biggest deterrent to recycling, which is the costs. There are many costs associated with recycling. You need to employ people to separate, collect, and distribute the recycled material. You need to purchase facilities, machinery to collect and separate the material. You also need to pay for vehicles and the fuel costs to go out and collect the recyclable material from either neighborhoods or from a facility. Finally, in conclusion, we can see that recycling is very important to preserve our way of life. It's also important to know that there are ways to increase recycling. It's important to know how recycling saves a lot of energy. However, in order to get over or to increase our recycling rates, we must find a way to reduce the cost of recycling. Thank you.